Welcome to the North Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame YouTube channel. I'm Ed Helinski. Thanks so much for joining us today. We've talked with former players. We've talked with former coaches. This time we're taking a little bit in a unique avenue. This one, a former equipment manager. From the mid-1970s to the end of the 70s on to Cortland State, various minor league professional football teams in the Western New York area, and then a 35-year career with the Buffalo Bills. We have for you today the one and the only Randy Woody Ribbeck. Randy, good to catch up with you, my friend. It's been many, many years. How's things?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on your show. I enjoy watching.
Thanks so much. It was good that, when you reached out to me about a month ago, and then you expressed some interest you'd like to do one of these. And when I got thinking about it, it made a lot of sense because you knew all those players back then, and you've had quite the experiences over the years. For those of the people who are not familiar with you, give us a little bit about your background growing up in North Tonawanda.
I played Little League football for the NT 49ers from 1968 to 71. Too small, but as fast as you can get. But size speed is not going to help your game at all, especially when you are playing on an 80-pound team. You weigh no more than 60 pounds. Missed playing football, missed being associated with football. And back in 1975, Stan Russin was a friend of mine. And what happened was I was getting picked on a lot in high school. And I said to myself, I'm only 5'2", 100 pounds. I'm being bounced around like a ping pong ball. And I said, I'm done. So I found out that big players or big people can protect you. So Stanley did a little thing with me on the basketball court. And I felt these people that size can protect me. So a few months later, my grandfather was in the hospital, and he just happened to be in the same hospital room as George Pluak. And George Pluak talked to George Vetter about me working. And then George Vetter and George Pluak told me to call Chuck Ramsey. And I talked to Chuck Ramsey on August 19th, 1975. And it started from there. I started being the football manager for football. Then I was asked to do hockey. Then I did baseball. Graduated, became the equipment manager for the school district for 2.5 years. Then went away for college at Cortland State, be a phys ed major with a minor in sports management. Put my resume in with the Buffalo Bills in 1981. Got hired immediately and started working full time at the year of the strike of 82. Then I was there from 1983 till February of 2018.
I got to ask you, not everybody gets into and aspires to be an equipment manager. What was the draw? What was a hook for you to get involved?
I mean, in sports in general?
Well, to be the equipment manager, be affiliated with the high school program, and then make a career out of it.
I just enjoyed sports. I took a test in college where they would test you for your interests. I was told always, if you wanted to think of a job to do for your rest of your life, what would you do for free? And I would do being a ball boy. I would work with equipment. I would like to teach people, and that's what I end up inspiring into.
The first few years of NT football, what was it like with the equipment? People think when you're an equipment manager that you're handing out used shoes, jocks, and T-shirts. What's involved with it all at that level?
At the high school level, if coming from the pros to the high school, you feel sorry because a lot of these kids aren't properly equipped with helmets. The shoulder pads are all the wrong size, either too big or too small. Thigh pads, knee pads, you might as well just give them a sheet of paper. Shoes, they're getting better, but they're getting too light, they're getting too flimsy. And it's just a shame. I went to I can talk about it now. My son went to Williamsville North High School, and I went to help the coach out. I says, I can't do this legally, but if you want me to look at a player's helmet, I will look at it. So I was looking at this one kid's helmet, and all of a sudden this father started yelling at me, get your hands off my son, get your hands off my son. And I just ignored him because I don't want any issues with him. All of a sudden the coach said, shut up. He's helping us out. He's not supposed to be doing what he's doing. Well, what makes him think knows what he's doing? He said he's with the Buffalo Bills. He knows what he's doing. And the guy shut up right away. But the kids are just mean, that's why I think a kid should wear a helmet or start playing football when they're ninth grade. Now, don't do anything pee-wee. If you're doing pee-wee, play flag football and have them wear like a guardian cap for a helmet. Don't have them play.
Is that because their body's not developed, or it begins the rundown of a player's body and the time clock of being an athlete?
I think the parents can have a tendency to put too much pressure on their child because a lot of parents will live their fantasy through their child, and the kid can't handle it. There's so many kids that get burned out at such an early age, and then they're taught no technique, and it shows.
What about equipment back there in the mid 70s? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you grade it in terms of quality?
Maybe a 2. Helmets were okay. Shoulder pads were like made of a hard rubber, and that you just smell after a while, and just the technology today has changed so much. Shoulder pads are smaller, streamlined more. The padding is better. It's thinner. That's why you look at the players on the field right now. It looks like we're not wearing any shoulder pads, but the shoulder pads are protecting them very well.
Back then, what was the shelf life of equipment in school districts?
Believe it or not, in fact, in my house here, I have a leather helmet that's probably from the 50s, 60s. That some kids at Payne Junior High School were still wearing them in the 70s. So, life expectancy of a helmet back then probably about 5-6 years. Now it's 10 years because the shell is made of better quality. The insides are better. You can recondition them quicker and easier.
Besides Coach Ramsey, who were some of the other coaches that you worked with during your tenure at North Tonawanda?
Have to be George Tedder, Chuck Williams, Dave Anastasi, John Sarah. I wish I had the pleasure of working with Francis Burke, but I didn't. I think there's a coach from Payne Junior High School. He was a social studies teacher, I believe, but I can't remember. I think maybe Jamula was a coach there, and that was just on the football side. But I dealt with coaches from other sports like Mark Sternin, Dick. I can't think of his name. Oh, Daiwan is his last name. He's on my Facebook too. I can't remember it. You had Mel Puchek, Jerry Rutledge, so many coaches, and it was a lot of fun back then.
You saw and you heard a lot of things in these locker rooms over the years, especially in the high school. Any of the stories repeatable?
No. What happens in the locker room?
That's a good way to look at things like that. It's a great way to keep that brotherhood intact.
Yes. It was Mike Daiwan was a hockey coach.
We're an equipment manager during the time period of the Niagara Frontier League and the changeover going to federation play and whatnot. How did you prepare for some football wise? How did you prepare for some of these schools and the weather conditions on the high school level?
Back then, we didn't have that much of equipment issue because the students had to pay for their own shoes. The only thing we could possibly give them for warmth is sweatshirts. That's all we had. We didn't have that much of a budget for the sports, so it was pretty much very simple.
Do you think that football and other high school athletics are funded properly?
No, I'd rather spend, say, $10,000 more for taxes overall. No, maybe $100,000 for taxes. If the sports keeps kids off the streets at night, then it's better off for everybody involved.
You did see a lot of things that happened with players getting hurt. Can you correlate any of that to the equipment, or was it the evolution of players getting bigger, faster, stronger?
Bigger, faster, stronger. Plus, back then you're looking at technique. When you're making a tackle, you don't put your head down; you keep your head up. And some players have a tendency to duck, take the player out with the knees, and they're not looking at the opponent. You have to look at the opponent.
A lot of that was taught and was legal back then. Cut them down at the knees, tackle with your head. You like the rule changes with that?
Yes.
Why?
Safer for the players. because you
How
got to see
about
like
how about with the involvement with during your high school career first, the involvement of parents regarding their sons and playing the different sports at North Tonawanda?
I didn't have that much of an interaction with the parents. It was more likely the coaches would have to have that headache. I'm sure. I know some players, moms and dads, complain to the coach that my son's not playing, and the coach would probably say to himself, "He's not that good. I don't want to see him get hurt." It's coaches are put in a tough situation because, like I said before, the parents are living through the kids' fantasies.
You buy the idea that with certain teams, there's certain second and third stringers are better off as being terrific teammates and practice players?
Yes, because otherwise you're gonna have a kid that's a third string going to get hurt because he can't physically adapt to the sport or is not strong enough mentally.
Besides bigger, faster, stronger, what else has changed in high school sports that you've seen over the years?
I've seen a tremendous interest in the parents become boosters. But when I was in high school, we didn't have that many parents really involved as it is today. Once again, the parents are living their fantasies through their kids.
Do you like today's high school football game?
I really haven't watched too many football games from the high school level. It's interesting to see how the players react to the crowd. But other than that, I didn't really pay that much attention after my son left high school.
During your time at North Tonawanda, have any players that you became close to that you would consider friends even today?
Oof. I haven't been in North Tonawanda since I left in 1984. I mean, a good friend of mine was Bill Holovix. He passed away many years ago. I try to keep in touch with Carl Godotti. Once in a while, I'll hear from Matt Laper or John Laper, see how they're doing. But I saw Edgy Skavinsky about a month ago, but I really don't frequent North Tonawanda anymore. I don't, my family, my parents have died. My sister and brother live out in Wheatfield, so I don't go out there that much. Sorry, folks, but that's the way it is.
When you got to the Buffalo Bills, did you consider that to be your dream job?
Yes, I mean I try to get to the top of my job occupation. That was it.
What were they having you doing on a part-time basis back in 81 and 82?
I was pretty much in training camp where we had to make sure that the coaches had their equipment, the footballs, the players had their clothing for practice. It came to helmets, shoulder pads, thigh pad, knee pad, shoes, undergarments. And we just paid attention to what's going on in practice, make sure we follow the script with plays and down and distance. And if there's any repairs on helmets or other type of equipment, we had to do it right away.
How do you prepare for 80, 90 players and training camp? You just load up the bus and put everything in, and
pretty much it's
you empty out the facility and take it. You probably were at Niagara University and then Fredonia and then over to St. John Fisher.
Right. At one point it was maybe 4 or 5 semis and a flatbed for all your outside equipment, but now we take at least 12 trucks because you have video, you have weights, you have equipment, you have coaches, you have marketing. Everyone brings their stuff down to camp and starts unloading 2 weeks beforehand. It's not fun. I hate training camp. Because when COVID hit and they had training camp here, I talked to the equipment managers there and they said they love it because everything's there. Everything, from weight room to medical to equipment is all right there. Nothing had to be moved. Because what's going to happen is you're going to be training camp and the player's going to say, "Man, I left my pair of shoes in my locker. Can you get them?" Well, to go back and forth to training camp in St. John Fisher would take at least 3 hours. And by that time, the player's late for the shoes. He needs them, but he can't have them. But then he complains. So that's why you have to try and almost pack the entire equipment equipment room and the training room and the weight room. So when a player does want that one item, he gets it.
Are they required to maybe take what they want out of their locker and put it in a bag and take it with them, or?
They're supposed to do that, but they're spoiled. They're spoiled from high school to college, and when they come to pros, we try to stop that bothering them, and eventually they get the hint. One time we had a player forget his helmet. I said, I'm tired of packing your helmet. I said, next time you forget your helmet, you're going to carry it on the plane. And I had the permission from the coach. He goes, do it. So this player went to the game and said, here. I threw his helmet to him in the airport, says, carry it. And he got ridiculed by the players. It was great too. I loved it. And we had another player that. And
I'm
I
sorry,
said,
they what?
pardon me?
No, I'm sorry. I cut you off and I didn't hear what your last sentence was.
The helmet to him, and the players ridiculed him because of it. And then another time we had I'm not going to mention his name, but we had a all-pro player that forgot his helmet. And I said, enough of this. So I hit his helmet because I knew he wasn't going to carry on the plane. So I hit his helmet and I said, where's your helmet? He goes, I didn't pack it. I said, well, you're supposed to pack it. I said, if you had $1,000 in the helmet, I guarantee that $1,000 helmet would be packed. He goes, I was busy. Well, too bad. So then we made the process of putting him in a different helmet, not even what he was wearing. I said, maybe next time you'll pack your helmet. But about 2 minutes before the game, we gave him his helmet, just to piss him off. And he had a good game that game too.
How was it in the NFL? How was the equipment changed over the 35 years that you were there?
Smaller, lighter, more efficient. It's idiot proof when it comes to having them outfit their shoulder pads or helmets. Just the shoes are lighter. And nowadays, players are trying to be as light as possible. Back then with the leather helmets, when they got wet, they weighed a lot of they weighed a lot. But if you go with the helmets nowadays, they're not as heavy. Face masks are lighter. Made out of titanium versus carbon steel.
What's the worst scenario to be part of as an athletic equipment manager in the NFL? Is it the cold? Is it the rain? Is it the snow? Is it the ice?
Weather-wise, I would say rain. If it's snow, you can always brush it off. Coldness, it's fine. But I think the scariest part is when you're on the field and you have a player laying on his back or side or on his stomach, and he can't move. That is, I think, the job that I hate seeing, because I had to do Kevin Everett, and then I also had to do Ron Brooks twice. And just realize that when you're taking a face mask off a player's helmet, if you bump the trainer who's holding his head stable, he's dead. We did a few drills, and I was trying to hop over the trainer. The trainer moved. I didn't see him move, and I tripped him. And obviously the dummy that we had was alive and well. But when I tripped him, I jerked his head. To just that 1 millimeter of a motion can kill somebody. That's the scariest part of football. That's the only thing I worry about is injuries. But with the equipment now, they have so many clothes for players to get when it gets warm, when it gets hot, when it rain. It's hard to do because otherwise, if you give them like a rubber jacket to wear, so to speak, they sweat too much.
You were with the Bills during several coaches, several general managers, and thousands of players, literally thousands of players. Did you ever at a training camp or during the season or maybe somebody who was drafted, you just think to yourself and shake your head and say, what were they thinking bringing this guy in?
That's happened many times. I'm not in the scouting department, but you just tell by the players' attitude that they think they didn't think they can't say the word doo-doo, they think they're the best thing out there since soft ice cream. And I said, no. I said, you're one play away from being unemployed. And they weren't too happy with my response after that.
Did a lot of them get with the program, or did they find themselves being shown the door?
They were shown the door. Thank God. Because you have 90 guys, of which, maybe 40 are good enough to play, and the other 7 or 15 guys are just there for bodies. Usually at training camp, I could figure out who's going to make the team after 2 weeks.
It's just that obvious.
Yes. I mean, you can tell. Guy can't walk a straight line. Doesn't pay attention with the plays. He's being asked 100 times what he's doing wrong. He doesn't have the answer. The coach can only do so much.
Who were some of your favorite Buffalo Bills?
I can't even name one. Names that go off the top of my head would be Joe Devlin, Joe Ferguson, Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed, Cornelius Bennett, Bruce Smith, Kyle Williams, Shady McCoy was a good guy to us. Antoine Smith. I mean, I can go on and on and on. I mean, there's more players that I dislike than what I like. And I would let the players know that I have no respect for them, because if you don't respect me, I don't respect you. Even though we're supposed to respect them, I can't. If someone spits in your face, you're not going to stick around with them and get spit in your face again.
Did you find that there were a lot of guys who were didn't treat you well? I mean, they didn't think much of you, or what you brought to the team and contributed to the organization?
They just consider me a glorified ball boy. I had one player literally put me against the wall and started complaining about his missing mouthpiece. So one of the players I mentioned said, "Call him over here, say something to him, bring him over here." I said, "No, I don't want no issues with the guy. He's an idiot. He's not going to make this team." He goes, "Bring him over here." So I called him up, and I made a derogatory remark about him. And he comes flying out around the corner. All of a sudden, this one player who was strong enough picked him up and says, "What's the problem here?" He goes, "This little SOB lost my mouthpiece." He goes, "How long have you had that mouthpiece for?" He goes, "Since college." He goes, "How many years in college?" 4 years. So in other words, you had mouthpiece for about 4 years and 1 month. Yeah, he lost it. Well, maybe it's about time to get a new one. And he goes, "Now leave him alone. If you come here again to harass about a mouthpiece, we'll take care of you." So once again, that's protection. The players respected you, and which felt good. But I was happy that the players did that. And nowadays, there's some players that take care of you, but some players are just looking out for themselves. It's a shame, but that's the way society is.
You said talk about taking care of you. In baseball, they have the equipment managers in the clubhouse or whatever else, and they might receive a gift and an envelope from players. Does that exist in the NFL locker room as well, too, where you're being taken care of by the players?
Back in the 90s, yes, but man, I could get in trouble. I don't care. But nowadays, it's getting a lot less. What I got my final year with the Bills, we'll say it was $2,000. Back in the 90s, I would get $2,000 from 4 players, and that wouldn't even include the rest of the team. The players are more concerned about keeping their money to themselves, but yet they'll spend it on getting a $50,000 jewelry outfit, or $10,000 suit, or a $250,000 car. Just their priorities are a lot different nowadays. It's a shame.
Do these NFL players get shoe deals and other equipment deals?
Yes, a lot of times we will get them a deal, and you think there was, hey, thanks for helping me out. Here's a $50 gift card to go to Ilya Paul's restaurant, or Russell's, or the chefs. Then now they say thanks, and sometimes they don't even say thank you.
So in essence, the players have changed.
Yes, big time.
With the money and they've changed over the years.
Yes, they have. It's a shame, but that's part of society. When the NFL gets $24 billion a year for their contracts with networks, more money is being spent, and the players want to be more. They want to get that money in their own pockets, and they just want to keep it. They don't spend it. They'll spend it on themselves, but not anybody else.
Do you think that NFL players manage their money well?
No.
You probably heard stories like in many other sports where they've gone through all their money.
Yeah, well, the thing is, a lot of people think they make a lot of money. They do, but taxes are taken out. Then if a player happens to have a child, or 2 child, or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 10, the wives will get a certain percentage of his salary at the at the peak of his career. And if he's not working, he still has to upkeep that income to the families or the children until they're 18 years of age. It's impossible. That's why you see a lot of these players go bankrupt.
I've heard of that, and I know of some of those instances. Is that a rampant thing in the NFL where players are fathering multiple children?
Yeah, because a lot of people or women, sorry to be sexist, but they're thinking that, hey, it'd be an easy way in to have my child or myself financially stable for the rest of my life.
The groupies. I mean, and exactly, they gravitate to professional athletes.
Right.
I get it.
Same thing with movie stars. Anybody that can make a lot of money, like executives in a corporation, always having these young, beautiful wives, and the guy's like 60 years old and she's like 30.
We don't have that problem, do we?
No.
So after you've left the Bills, what are you doing with yourself these days?
I'm the equipment manager for a wheelchair football team. It's associated with the Greater Buffalo Adaptive Sports. It's NFL sponsored. And we have practices Monday and Saturday in Lancaster. We have tournaments to go to. We went to Salt Lake City last year. We're going to Tampa, Las Vegas, and Cleveland this year. They asked me to help them out. I said, sure, I'll help you out. Went to one practice, and Bud Carpenter, the former trainer for the Bills, said, we need to know if you can help us. I said, what? He says, do you mind putting decals on the helmets? They said, you could probably do that. I said, I could do it probably blindfolded. So I had to put the decals on, and then I saw them there have some equipment issues with the helmets. And I said, well, you need help? Yeah, we need help. You're joining us. So I joined them a year and a half ago, and I enjoy it.
You're also on the scholarship committees for the Ilio DiPaolo scholarship and also the Van Miller scholarship as well,
right.
too.
Right.
That's gotta be rather heartwarming. I mean, to be part of something like that, an ongoing concern and helping youth and having scholarship money helping kids.
Right. Especially when Ilio passed, I was told to walk around the helmet with a football helmet. Oh no, I was asked to walk around the locker with a football helmet, and I had the thing full of money. And because it made no sense to donate flowers to Ilio's funeral when I'm sure he would rather have money spent to help the kids in the neighborhood or in the area, and it's worked. Same thing with Van Miller. We started, I think about 10 years ago, and Van was still alive, and he says, I'm donating to this fund. I like it because sometimes a lot of companies or organizations will start a fundraiser after the person is dead. Do it beforehand. Make them feel as if they've done something in their life.
Are you affiliated with any other charities? And now in your spare time?
If I do, it's like maybe once a life, once a blue moon. But those are my two major ones I mainly work with. The main one is Ilios. I haven't been with the Van Miller one in a couple of years because at times they had it was like right before training camp started, and I couldn't make it.
You've worked with other guys like Daryl Moose Johnston down in San Antonio, and people like Jim Burt of the Giants, and that you're well liked and well known in the NFL circles in Western New York. How does that make you feel from a kid from North Tonawanda and where you came from and what you made out of your career over the last 35, 40 years?
I felt I've accomplished something. I've accomplished fulfilling my dream. Although my dream would have been to win a Super Bowl, but that didn't happen. I had a great time. I could die tomorrow and be a happy man.
You're very fortunate. You had the front row seat for 4 Super Bowls in the 90s. And I'm not going to even ask you about how the highs were of getting there and the lows there that occurred with not winning those, from wide right to the games against Washington and Dallas. Do you have any regrets about your career?
Just not getting a Super Bowl ring. I mean, I trade all 4 of my AFC championship rings for one. Other than that, just I think I did a good job. After hindsight's 2020. I could have done this differently. I could have done that differently, but at the time, you don't know. And so that way, in fact, when I went to San Antonio with the for the Alliance of American Football, the league that Bill Polian started, to make a long story short, I was equipment consultant. And what I did was I taught these kids little secrets. And he said, I've been doing this for 2 years and I have learned more in 1 month than I did in 2 years with you. I said, well, just stick around. I'll give you more ideas, more little, trade secrets. And it worked.
Should more kids get involved with athletic training and athletic equipment?
I think they should. That way they can understand the products that are out there. They can understand the terminology the trainers use and can learn. But sometimes they think they'll be like a know-it-all, and that makes it even worse for either equipment manager on the team or trainer on the team. They should just keep an eye on it and just, understand, but not to the point of becoming a know-it-all.
During the NFL season, how many hours were you typically working?
During the season, at least 80 hours a week. During the off season, about 40. I mean, you weren't working continuously 40 hours a week, but you would have a break here and there. You would go to seminars, you go to meetings, and just learn about new products and learn overall.
Did you have a lot of brainstorming sessions if you were going to go on the road or even a home game when the weather was going to get crappy, and plan for what if and what else, and you plan for the worst possible scenario and be prepared accordingly?
Yeah, what helped us one time we were playing against the Miami Dolphins. I think in the '93 we played against Miami. I think we beat the comeback game. Then we did Pittsburgh and went to Miami. And the equipment manager from the San Diego Chargers says, "You need to change your shoes to this style." And we did, and we had no problems running. Miami did. Miami did not get that memo. So the equipment manager from the San Diego Chargers liked us a little better, so he gave us an idea of what to do, and it worked. The players weren't happy about it because it hurt their feet, but once the ground got soft, it was easy to run.
From an equipment standpoint, what was the best NFL venues, NFL stadiums to work in, and what were some of the ones that weren't good to work in?
Miami would be the best location-wise, and the stadium itself. Probably the worst would have been Cleveland or Oakland. The old Shea Stadium in New York City was bad. The old Baltimore Stadium. There's I'm just trying to get a visual on all these lockers. Another good one would have been Dallas. Obviously, newer stadiums.
After an NFL game, how much time do you have to pack everything up, a road game, and to get it on the truck and get it on the plane, and so everybody's going home at the same time, or do they?
It depends upon the coach and depends upon the situation. One time we had a window to get out of a stadium because of the weather, and we were out within 45 minutes. Sometimes if a player is injured, we have to make sure that the player is stable before we can leave the area. So you can go anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, but the 15-minute difference is a lot for us. But sometimes you have a coach he's already ready to go, and you're not even close to being ready. You say, let's go, let's go, let's go. And so you're under a lot of pressure to try and push these players. The players are just resting and, being interviewed, and the coach saying, let's go. And we can't interrupt the players being interviewed. So we just have to slowly edge them to get their bags packed. And then once we get the players' bags packed, we can get ourselves showered up and get out. And then the players will have to hear from the coach as to why it took them so long to get ready to leave.
And then when the plane lands, you don't go home until everything's unloaded at the facility again, correct?
Correct. Years ago, we would have our truck driver, Al Wheeler, was a great guy. He would do it for us. But as he got older and we started bringing more equipment, we started helping him out. And now when we unload, we have training interns, weight room interns, equipment interns, and he just helps unload. And it takes us about maybe an hour and a half because what we have to do immediately after the game, because of the way the jerseys are made, is Jeff Mazurek and Spencer Haas, who are the equipment guys at the stadium, they have to pre-treat every jersey, every pants to get rid of the grass stains or markings off the field, off the pants. Otherwise, you just get absorbed into the material.
And then that's the same for on the road as well too, or do you just pack it up and deal with it when you get back?
We deal with it when we get back for home and away games.
What has changed that you can pinpoint and with the athletic equipment in terms of maybe techniques or equipment? What's been like the biggest impacts and changes over the years?
I would have to say the helmet design. When a player would get hit, the fasteners would be above their eyebrows, but now the fasteners are on the side of the head because because the initial hit is from the a person looking at a player. So when you had the screws, they'll hit right in the front of the forehead. But now, because there's no fasteners on the front of the face mask, when a player gets hit, the energy is dispersed to the side of the head instead of being at the forehead. Shorter pads, like I said, they're lighter, smaller, and the player has to wear them tight. Otherwise, they'll get there, because if you have a shoulder pad laying on their shoulder and you hit them, you're going to have a direct blow. But some of these players don't. Some of these shoulder pads don't have a cantilever strap, which is like an arc. So you're strapping on your shoulder pads have to be tight to act as an arc on the shoulder pads. That's why you see them so small. Hopefully, that made sense.
It does. Like everybody else, when you saw, what went through your mind when you saw DeMar Hamlin go down in Cincinnati?
I've been through this. I have not been to that exact situation before, but I know what the role of the equipment manager was. Corey Rebland did a fantastic job. I know some insights about what happened on the field, but when he went down, they knew that they had to react immediately to the situation. And Corey, I saw him grab the tools out of his pocket, and I said, "This game's not going to continue. There's no way a game like that could work for anybody. There's too much of emotional stress on the players."
Did thoughts of Kevin Everett go through your head when you saw that?
Yes. But Kevin I believe he was conscious to the point, but with DeMar, he was not. Same thing with Ron Brooks. Ron Brooks, when he got hurt, he was talking to us, and he understood what was going on. In fact, I saw Kevin Everett about a month later, and I says, "What does it feel like?" He goes, "It's like when your foot falls asleep, how you have the tingling sensation in your feet." He goes, "This way I feel at all times." I said, "It beats the alternative." He goes, "Yeah." But he gave me a hug. He thanked me for helping save his life. I said, "Hey, it's our job overall as trainers and equipment staff to make sure that you're well protected, and if an injury occurs, we adapt the situation."
You were very fortunate during your career to work alongside the late great Eddie Abramowski. I'm sure you've got all kinds of different stories about Abe, and he'd been there from the very beginning with the Bills.
Right.
What can you share about Abe without breaking any confidence or any? I'm sure he was quite the character. I mean, he's always been portrayed as quite the character.
Yeah, I think he probably knew easy 1,000 songs, but he only knew the first words or the first verse of each song. When I went for the interview in 1981, the equipment manager, Chuck Ziobro, was not ready yet. And he said, "Sit down, son. I want to talk to you." So Abe talked to me for about a good 5 minutes. And he goes, "You're going to do well here." And then I did the interview, got hired, went back there in 82. And he goes, "I told you to be back. You're good at what you do, and you enjoy what you're doing." I says, "Thanks, Abe." We have so many stories about him. I was trying to think of some nice ones. It was a fantastic person. He was like my second dad. He gave you a lot of advice. He told me one advice: never lie to a player. And like, so one time I lied to a player, and I had to because the situation I was under. Goes, once you lie to one player, they'll never respect you if they find out. And so I only lied to the one player once. He goes, if you have to lie to them, just stretch the truth just a little bit, but don't flat out lie. And I says, okay. And that advice helped me out through many situations. He was a hell of a racquetball player. When he would play against you, he would pretty much be inches from your body, so you couldn't really hit the ball. And if you hit him, you say, okay, I got a hinder. Thanks, Abe. But I just try to. He was just fun to be around with. It's a shame that time got a hold of him, and his time was up.
During the course of the 35 years with the Bills, I'm sure you had a lot of players say private things to you, or ask you advice, or use you as a sounding board. Did that happen quite often, or was that once in a while?
Back in the 80s and 90s, yes, because we were pretty much a close family. We were with each other for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for 6-7 months. And eventually you got to know the players, their wives, their kids, their relatives. But nowadays, it's different. When I had the chance to go to work for the Houston Oilers, I was talking to Warren Moon, and I said, after the game, what do you guys? This is back in the 90s. After we beat them in the comeback game, I said, what do you do after a game? Oh, we go home. I said, you don't have no sense of family? He goes, no, not like you in Buffalo. In Buffalo, we would go to either the Palos, we would go to Chefs. It was one big family. But nowadays, they don't. We used to have parties at Jim Kelly's house, which I'm not going to talk about, but it was a big family back then. Nowadays, when I was there was very little people doing anything after a game. They just go home.
We heard about the bickering Bills in the early 90s. Was that overblown? Or
Yes.
did it really happen?
It was overblown. You're regardless of where you work, you're going to have somebody say something to somebody else, and all of a sudden media will hear a little chirp about it, then they blow it out of proportion. It's everyone. There's no way. It's like a husband and wife have an argument. If somebody hears it from the neighborhood, there goes, "Oh, they're arguing," but no, we're just voicing our difference, our opinion, we're just voicing our differences. There's nothing big.
Looking back at your career, would you do anything different? Do you have any regrets?
I wish what I knew now back then. Outfitting players better at North Tonawanda, working a little more harder at the minor pro football level. Same thing at the college level. I would do things differently. There's so many things you could, now that you know what you did, there's so many things that you should have changed, but you didn't know at the time.
In the annals of North Tonawanda sports history, where does Woody Ribbeck stand, and how should you be remembered?
Someone that loved what he was doing, and hopefully it showed to other people.
Woody, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me today. Got rid of all that technical glitches out of the way early. It took us a little bit, but thank you so much. Good health to you.
I'm here.
And thanks so much. Good seeing you.
Enjoy. Thank you. Thanks again.